Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So good to have you with us once again on Coffee with Clarence. This is Clarence Clueless, your favorite television host, inviting you once again to have coffee with me and with my very special guest, all the way from Persia, ladies and gentlemen, Queen Hadassah of Persia. Welcome, Your Majesty.
There's a lot of people out there, isn't there?
Yes, there are a lot of people. They're all looking forward to hearing from you. Many of them sitting there in the television audience and others out there in television land.
Well, you see, I have a little problem here because I've never been on television before, and I'm not used to people looking at me.
No.
Just at me, you know. Because in Persia they don't do that.
No, they wouldn't do that.
They look at the king.
They look at the king, yes. Yeah. Nobody looks at...
Okay,
no,
so
well,
I'm feeling a little nervous.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I know that you are nervous, Your Majesty, but I assure you there's no reason to be nervous because everyone out there in television land and all these people in the audience are so much with you, and we so much admire what you did about the genocide.
Yeah, the genocide, right. And because you know what? People tried to kill us, you know.
Yes, they tried to kill the Jewish people in Persia, didn't they?
Yes, they did, because they're jealous of us.
That's right. Now, why do you think they're jealous of you?
Because we're God's chosen people, you know.
Oh, that's it. Yes, of course. Do you know, I was just thinking this morning about what Tevye said on Fiddler on the Roof. Do you remember that?
Who's Tevye, and by the what's Fiddler on the Roof?
Fiddler on the Roof, the movie that came out in the early 70s. Very famous movie. Fiddler on the Roof, and the main character was Tevye. You don't remember? No. Well, all right. Well, I was thinking about a specific scene where Tevye is walking behind his horse on that muddy country road on his way back from the fields to the shtetl.
What's a shtetl?
A shtetl. It's where the Jewish people used to live in Russia during the Tsar's regime.
Okay.
Yes. Anyway, Tevye is walking behind his horse, coming in from the fields, and he's having an imaginary conversation with God. And he says, Lord, I know we are your chosen people, but couldn't you choose somebody else for a change? Well, perhaps, Your Majesty, we'd like to hear your story, and I wonder if you'd like to tell it in your own words and perhaps begin from the beginning.
Yeah, the beginning is a good place. I'd like to begin from the beginning.
All right. Go ahead and begin.
Okay. Well, I was born in southern Persia.
All right.
Okay. And my father was a laborer, and my mother took in washing because we were very poor. And we lived in this very, very small house. And my mother worked so that she could put bread on the table, but the only problem is we didn't have a table. We just sat on the floor because there was this hole in the roof.
Yes.
And that's how we lived.
I see.
And then a terrible thing happened.
What happened?
My parents both died. Could you imagine that? And I was an orphan girl. Can you imagine being an orphan girl?
I cannot imagine being an orphan girl. I really can't. No, but it must have been awful for you.
Yeah.
So what happened?
Well, a neighbor emailed my Uncle Mort, who lived in the capital and the palace at Shushan.
Shushan?
Yeah.
Is that the name of a place?
Yeah.
Is that the name of the palace?
Yeah.
Shushan? Or the city was Shushan?
Yeah.
Oh, both.
Right.
So it was like a Shushan palace, you might say.
You might say.
Well, I remember vividly a shoe-shine palace in Detroit. I used to go and get my shoes shined there for $1. Did a wonderful job. Not like that, though, at all, I suppose. No, I suppose it wouldn't be. Shoe shine is a very strange name, isn't it?
Well, you know, it's a name thing.
Yes.
You know, remember me, I'm Hadassah,
yes.
I'm Esther,
yes.
and you call me Your Majesty. You know, it's a name thing. That
yes.
name thingy.
Yes. Well, names do tend to change.
Yes,
I do understand that. And so your Uncle Mort lived in the palace, did he?
Yeah.
And was he born in the palace?
No. He
no?
was born in Jerusalem.
Ah.
And so were my parents. But you see, what happened is King Nebuchadnezzar came to Jerusalem, and he conquered Jerusalem, and that all the Jews got deported to Persia. So that's how Uncle Mort came to the palace in Persia.
Now, the King Nebuchadnezzar is not the same king as the one that you married.
No, you're getting ahead of me here.
Yeah, I know I am, but we never discussed.
No, he was a bad king. He
Nebuchadnezzar
was bad.
was.
Yeah, he was bad
all
to
right.
the Jewish people.
So he deported the Jews to Shushan.
Right.
And then this other king came on board on the scene, and he's the one that you knew some time ago, I guess. And so your Uncle Mort, that was his name, was it? Mort?
Well, actually, his name was Mordecai. Well, really, he was my cousin Mordecai. But I only called him Uncle because he was so much older than me.
Okay,
So I called him Uncle.
So your uncle was not an uncle; he was a cousin,
Yeah,
and his name
right.
was
It's that
not
name.
Mort;
Yeah,
it was
right.
Mordecai.
Yeah, right,
and
right.
it was not, and it was
Yeah,
Shushan,
right,
and
right,
it was the palace,
right,
and
right.
yeah. All right. Well, I think we're beginning to understand these things a little bit now, aren't we, ladies and gentlemen? So you went then. Somebody sent an email to your Uncle Mort, and your Uncle Mort did what?
He told me I could move in, and he would take care of me. So I lived there.
So you invited you to live at the palace.
Right.
I see.
Okay.
Now, momentous events were occurring in the palace at this time, were they not?
Well, yeah, and important things too.
Yes.
Something happened, and that's how and I'm going to tell you about it because that's really how I became Queen of Persia.
Okay, yeah. Tell us what happened.
The king had all these concubines, lots of girls, and they
Right.
lived in a place called the harem.
Ah.
Well, his favorite, she was called Queen Vashti, but this queen stuff went to her head a little bit.
Yeah.
So the king, he liked to have big parties. And he would invite all the royal officials, the big machas from all the 127 provinces all over Persia to come to a feast, okay?
You sure there were 127 provinces?
Yeah, there was... Yeah, 127 provinces, so they came to the party.
Yeah, I'm convinced, yes.
Yes.
So they all came to the party, all of the
Yes.
big machas and everything else.
And,
Yep.
and they were feasting and getting drunk, and it...
How long did this party last?
Oh,
Was
it
a long one?
lasted for weeks.
Weeks?
Yeah, because he wanted to show them all his riches,
I see.
that kind of stuff. So they called for Queen Vashti. The king sent a message and told her she should dress up in her very best. He bought her something really nice from Victoria's Secret.
Victoria's Secret,
And he
yeah.
wanted her to come and dance, but she was a nice girl,
Was she? Mm-hmm. I see, okay. And so, did she come?
No, she was a very nice girl. She said she wasn't going to come because she wasn't going to, dance in front of a group of drunken men.
So she didn't come? That must have
No.
made the king as mad as a mullah in a synagogue.
Yes,
My
he was
goodness.
very mad. In fact, he talked to his advisors, and they told him you have to banish Queen Vashti.
Banish?
You know why? Because all the women in the kingdom, they won't obey their husbands. Oh
So
no, they wouldn't do that.
They weren't, so he banished her.
Yes, and
Is-
he issued a decree too.
Is that like vanished?
Yeah, she vanished.
When she was banished,
Yes,
yes.
absolutely. So he issued this decree that all the women in the empire, all those provinces that I know the number of.
100
Right. You got it? 127.
Yeah, very
Right.
good. How did you learn that?
I'm not going to tell you.
Can't
It's a royal secret. Anyway.
You have to be a queen or a princess
Yes.
I see.
So anyway, Queen Vashti was banished. He issued the decree.
Yes.
And all the women had to obey their husbands.
Well, it was just kind of like that Islam religion where...
Yeah, right. Where the women are forced to obey their husbands.
Yeah, and
That's
if
a
not, they
terrible
get
thing. Yeah,
knocked
right.
off, right.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not nice to them.
That's not nice at all.
So the king got very lonesome.
Yes.
After he calmed down and he wasn't so mad
what did he
anymore,
do?
he missed Queen Vashti.
I suppose.
He decided to have a beauty contest.
I see.
And what he thought he'd do is all the girls in the empire were eligible. So all the girls, unmarried, 27 provinces. All the unmarried girls were eligible. So in each one of the provinces, they would have their own contest. Then the winner would come to Shushan, and then they'd have a runoff.
I see.
And then out of that group, they would choose the winner, and she would become queen of all Persia.
Ah, I see. So what happened when all the girls got to Shushan?
Well, see, first of all, I wasn't even going to try out, but my friends kept saying, "Go, you're not married. What do you got to lose? Try out. Maybe you'll make it."
Maybe.
And I was elected Miss Shushan.
No, you won?
No, well, wait a minute.
Oh.
All the girls came from each one of the provinces, and I was Miss Shushan, but then there was Miss every one of the other 127 provinces.
Right.
So they narrowed it down to 3 contestants, and I was one of them.
All right.
And then I won.
You won?
Yeah, but what I didn't know was that the king was going to marry the winner, be married to the king. I mean, I knew I would be the winner, but I didn't know I would be married to the king and all that.
No, well, I can imagine you didn't. You know, this thing about the harem intrigues me. What did you do in the harem all day?
Oh, well, we did a lot of good stuff. See, it was like a spa, what you do in the spa. You get a massage, you do your nails, they do facials, let's see, the hair, beautiful hairstyles. All these gorgeous, creams and oils.
Really?
And then they teach us how to eat with a knife and fork.
Really?
How to be a lady. That kind of stuff. Getting you ready to live in the palace.
I
and
see.
Stuff.
Well, so then you had to marry the king, did you?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Did you want to marry the king?
Well, yeah, he was a very,
big
a powerful,
wasn't he?
Yeah, powerful man. He was handsome too.
Was he?
So it wasn't any problem. So I went to live in the palace with the king.
So when you got married, did your Uncle Mort give you any good advice?
Yeah, he did. He said to me, "Don't tell anyone that you're Jewish."
Oh, why was that?
Because people hated us.
Why?
Because, well, first of all, we're God's chosen people, but they were jealous of us.
Yes.
See, when the Jews got deported by that bad king, King Nebuchadnezzar, who wasn't nice to the Jews.
Yes.
Well, they came to the provinces, but particularly in Shushan, they became lawyers and doctors and advisors to the king. And then, Uncle Mort, that's how he got his job. His job is head of security at the palace, and he has this big office at the palace gate,
Yes.
So they were all, that's why Uncle Mort didn't want me to tell everyone I was Jewish. He didn't want those people to take out their jealousy on me.
I suppose not.
Yeah.
And so that was very wise advice that your Uncle Mort gave you, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. And now I believe Uncle Mort, didn't he come to see you one day after that?
Yeah, well, see, I told you he's head of security.
Right.
One day he overheard 2 of the king's advisors plotting against the king to kill him. They had this evil plot against the king.
Yes.
And he overheard this.
And he overheard it. And he came to you because he wanted you to do something about it?
Yes, he wanted me to tell the king about it. So I told the king, and the king launched this investigation, and sure enough, they caught the guys and executed them. And so the king was very happy with Uncle Mort.
I guess he was.
Yeah, well, they recorded his name in the king's diary. They have a book where they record all this history. So they recorded his name in the king's diary, that he was the one that found out about this plot and actually saved the king's life, Well, also PNN did a bit on it. PNN?
PNN?
Yeah, Persian News Network.
Oh, really? I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah.
No, we have another one similar.
Yeah,
something.
right. Yeah. But anyway, they did do a little bit on him.
They did. Well, that's very nice. A little sound bite or something, I suppose. Yes, right. So, did the king promote your Uncle Mort?
No, actually he didn't. I told you he just had his little bit on PNN. But he did promote another guy, a really sleazy character, to prime minister. His name was Haman Yasserfat.
And why do you say he was sleazy?
Oh, because he was so full of arrogance and pride, he wanted everybody to bow to him, and he didn't like Jews anyway. So one day, everybody had to bow to this guy.
Oh,
okay.
To Haman Yasserfat.
To Haman Yasserfat, and he was walking by Uncle Mort's office, because I told you by the palace gate, and Uncle Mort happened to be coming out of his office, and of course Uncle Mort wouldn't bow to him because Jews don't bow to anybody but God, you know.
Of course.
They even have trouble bowing to a king.
Yeah.
So Jehoshaphat, he was very angry, and he decided that he would get rid of the Jews and figure out how he could execute all of them, but he needed to figure out a date for this time. So
how do you do that?
well, he went into the palace garden and he threw dice to figure out what the date was.
Well, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, and it was the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar, that he chose.
Was that a Friday?
I don't know.
Oh, I see. I thought it might be important. You know, don't we have a clip of this Haman Yosaphat throwing dice or something from that? What was it? PNN. You know about it, do you? Well, yes. Why don't we roll that clip right now? Okay. Let's take a look at Haman Yosaphat, shall we?
Okay.
All right. I'm going to decide on the date that the Jews are going to die. I'm going to throw my dice. Oh, watch me. Look. The month of Adar. Yes. Oh, I love it. Oh, yes. The 13th. The 13th of Adar. I wonder if that is a Friday. Well, I can certainly see what you mean about being sleazy.
Yeah.
My goodness. You know, that guy reminds me of somebody. Some horrible character, but I can't remember who it is.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? It keeps coming back to me. Are you sure it wasn't Friday? Was the 13th a Friday that year?
You know, I don't know, but what does that have to do with it?
I don't know. I just keep thinking Friday the 13th. But anyway, so what happened next?
Well, the king, Haman Yosaphat was going to convince the king to send out a proclamation to murder all the Jews, and that murder was going to occur on the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar.
And did the king know you were Jewish?
No, I told you the king didn't know I was Jewish. Remember, Uncle Mort said that I shouldn't tell anybody that I was Jewish.
That's right, I remember now. What happened next?
Well, they sent out an email to all the, those provinces.
Oh.
Everybody, all the officials got the email, and they were supposed to distribute it, and they posted it on the royal website. But you see, I didn't get the message because my laptop wasn't working, and I was the only one in the whole of Shushan that didn't know about it.
That's often the way it is.
Yeah.
Now, did your uncle ask you to do something about this?
Yeah, well, he contacted me, and he told me about the evil plot. And he said that I must go and appeal to the king.
And did you appeal to the king?
You know, that's a very impertinent question.
I'm sorry, I really didn't mean it that way. But I meant, did you say something to the king?
Oh, yeah.
I say, and what did you say?
Well, I didn't have an appointment with the king.
But you rushed into his office?
No, you can't, just go and rush into the office of the king. You have to have an appointment. That's not the way it works. But Uncle Mort told me, he said I was brought to the kingdom for this time because I was supposed to save my people. So I said, okay. So we fasted and prayed, and then I said, I'm going in to see the king. And I was just fixing my hair, right before I went in and looking in the mirror, and I said to myself, Hadassah, that's me.
That's you.
If you perish, I perish. I got to do it for my people. I have to do this thing. So I went in and I saw the king. So
you, going in without permission, you were kind of taking your life into your hands, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. You just do that, and you're just not supposed to do that.
And that's why everybody says you were so courageous. That was
and I was brave too. But here's the deal. This is what happens if you go in to see the king.
Yes.
And you don't have an appointment. If he points this golden stick thing that he has, he points it to you and you touch it, then he's happy to see you.
Oh.
But if he doesn't point that golden stick thing at you, means he is not happy to see you, and then you could be executed. It happened to a lot of people I know.
And so did he point his scepter at you?
No, I told you. He pointed this golden stick thing at me.
Oh, I see, the golden stick.
Well.
And so were but you were able to get the king's attention then?
Yes, I was. He was in a very good mood that day.
And what happened next?
Oh, well, what happened was he said, "Oh, what is your request, Queen Esther?" See, he was Persian. He called me Esther by my Persian name.
Of course, he would.
"I will give you half of my empire." I said, "Your Majesty, I don't really want half of your empire, but I would like you to come to dinner tonight. And I will prepare a special meal for you. And I also want you to bring your prime minister, that
Haman Yosafat."
Yeah, don't worry. I got something in my head cooking for him. Let me tell you, and it wasn't a dinner. So they came to dinner at my house.
Yes.
And it was very nice.
Yes.
And the king started on me again, with this half a kingdom bit.
Yes.
But I said, "No, I'll tell you what. Why don't you and Haman Yosafat come tomorrow night, and I'll have one of those big long banquets like you like, and then maybe I'll think of something."
All right. Very good.
So Haman Yosafat left, and oh boy, he was just full of pride. He was, and he's going home to tell everybody what a great guy he is. And what do you think? He has to go out what? How does he leave the palace? Through the palace gate.
Where your Uncle Mort is.
In the security office. So he's passing the palace gate, and out comes Uncle Mort. And Uncle Mort refuses to bow to him, and Yosafat is really upset.
Wow.
So he goes home, and he's talking to his wife. Her name is Zeresh.
Yeah.
And he told her, he said, "Oh man, I had this great dinner with the king and the queen. I'm the only one invited, but it's totally ruined for me because of this Jew Mordecai. I hate him, and I hate all those Jews."
Whoa. So what did his wife say?
She said, "If you're such in big good, with the king and queen, why are you waiting for the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar?" And I don't know if it's a Friday, so don't ask.
No, I won't ask.
"Why don't you build a gallows?"
Yes.
"And then go to see the king tomorrow early and ask him to sign the death warrant, and you could get rid of Mordecai before the 13th day of the 12th month."
And that was when they said that Yosafat went a little bit mashugana.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't know. I only know what I was told, but the guy went a little crazy, and I must have liked the idea because he started to kind of dance around and sing this little song. Yeah. He went a little bit,
Jeff, didn't you tell me we have a clip of that from that, whatever that, PNN? Yeah, why don't you run that clip? Let's see that. I want to see this sleazy character again. What do you think?
All right.
I have them! I have them! I have them in my grasp! The Jews! The Jews! Not one of them will last! Armies have tried to kill them in the past, but Haman will do the job at last. I'll hang them! I'll hang them! The gallows will be high! The Jews! Each one of them will die! Now I have position! The ear of the king! Mordecai and all his cousins will die! Well, that was some clip, wasn't it, Your Majesty? That guy is totally nuts.
Yeah.
But the more I see of him, the more he reminds me of some sleazy character that I've seen on television not that long ago. The way he's sort of, moving, it looked like a guy that I remember with President Carter at Camp David. He was so happy that he was getting one over on the Jews. Just so similar to this awful character. Don't they understand that the Jews are God's people and you can't get one over on them because God protects them. God takes care of his people.
Yes, he does, but they don't get it.
They don't get it. They're so stupid. Well, anyway, did this sleazy character build his gallows?
Yes. Went to bed a very happy man.
And did he have your uncle hanged?
No.
No.
No, he didn't.
So please, tell us what happened.
Well, I told you, Haman went to bed a happy man, and he thinks he's going to the palace to ask the king to sign Uncle Mort's death warrant. Well, meanwhile, back at the palace, the king couldn't sleep. I have to admit, I guess I put too much garlic in the peas, and he probably had heartburn. Well, fortunately, he couldn't sleep. So he calls one of his pages. Yeah. That's one of those guys that wait on him, and he's trying to think of something, the most boring thing that he could have read to him to try to help him to fall asleep. So what's more boring than the diary, all the history stuff?
Yeah.
So the page starts reading to him and comes to this section where it talks about how Mordecai the Jew had saved the king's life. So by this time it's early in the morning, and the king's saying to himself, I wonder whether I ever had this Mordecai rewarded properly. So the page looks it up and he says, no, Your Majesty, there's nothing in this book that says any reward. They did a bit on CNN. So the kings think, PNN, right. Yeah, you told me during the break. Yeah. You got me mixed up. Isn't that network that yeah. PNN, right. Anyway, so, meanwhile, Jehoshaphat comes back to the palace. Yes. And he enters, because, see, with the prime minister, he had the king's ring, and he could go in and out, not like some people who had to have an appointment. That was one of his privileges. So he comes in to see the king. And he's ready with death warrant in hand. This is so wild, and it is so funny. Yeah. Wait till you hear what happened. So, the king says to Jehoshaphat, hey, Jehoshaphat, what should I do to reward a good man who really pleases me? Now, you got to remember, this character thinks he is it. Nobody could be better than him. Right. And, of course, all the rewards go to him. So he comes up with this elaborate plan. Right. So he says, oh, Your Majesty. Remember now, he thinks it's him. Yeah. He said, I think, you could just see him in your mind's eye, I think that you should array me, really, no, I mean him, in your best clothes. Right. And then you should put him, on one of your royal horses. Right. And then you should have several of your heralds and officials lead me around, him, whoever this person is, around the city. And this official should proclaim, this is how the king honors those who please him. And of course the heralds would be there with the trumpets, and they would go all around Shushan the city. Trombones. Shushan the city. So the king says, it's a wonderful idea, Jehoshaphat. Get the clothes, get the horse, set it up, and you, Jehoshaphat, will lead Mordecai the Jew, the man who saved my life, the man who pleases me.
Wow. What did Jehoshaphat say to that?
He didn't say much of anything, because he's sitting there like with his mouth hanging out, and his face hanging out. And the king had to, clap his hands and wake him up and say, hey, get on with it and get out of here. So he had to do it. Boy. He had to lead Uncle Mort through the city. Can you imagine this man that he hated?
I can't imagine it.
Wild.
Wow, it is.
And this is just the beginning.
That's what you call poetic justice.
Yes.
Woo! Oh, I love it. I love it.
Okay.
All right. So what happened next?
Well, so after this, Jehoshaphat is just mortified. That's no pun intended.
No. Nothing to do with Uncle Mort.
No pun intended.
That's a good pun. I love that. I love it.
You would, Clueless. Okay, all right.
That's very punny.
Yes. So anyway, he goes home, and that wife Zeresh of his? Yes. Well, suddenly, she is not so helpful, because he is complaining to her. She turns around and says to him, hey, if you knew Mordecai was a Jew, you shouldn't have fooled with him, because the God of the Jews would bring you down. Well, he didn't have much of a chance to answer her, because at that moment, guess what? the guards were coming to escort him to the second banquet and the wonderful dinner and other things that I had planned for Haman Yasaphat.
Well, what did you have planned?
Well, so he gets to the banquet. You know, it was one of those long kind.
The 7 days.
Yeah, the 7-day
right.
kind. So on this, we're eating and drinking, and you know, I was really getting tired of his company, but I was putting on a good face. But the second day, so the king starts with this half of the empire bit. Remember, I'm going to give you half of the empire, because you know he caught on that. Hey, I'm not going to risk my life and come and talk to him so I could cook him dinner.
Right.
Okay. So he asked me what my request is, and I said, I don't want half of your empire, Your Majesty.
Right.
What I want is for you to stop this evil decree that is issued against my people.
And the genocide.
Yes, and the genocide too.
And the killing of them.
And the killing too.
Right.
And the king says, who would do such an evil thing? And then I said, and I pointed at him, I said, the evil Haman Yasaphat, he did it.
Right.
Yes.
Wow, so what happened then?
Well, Yasaphat looked at me and I looked at him, and he took off running into the garden, and the king looked like he was going to burst a blood vessel, and he takes off running into the garden, and I just stood there and enjoyed the whole thing.
I bet you did.
Yeah, because I set him up.
Yeah, you did. And did Yasaphat ever come back?
Yeah, they ran back in, and could you imagine Yasaphat's trying to hide behind me and ask me to help him?
Really?
Yeah, I'm sitting down on the couch, you know, that these long couches, and Yasaphat comes behind me, and he sits kind of behind me, and then the king comes in and gets really upset. He says, now after all this, you're trying to molest the queen?
Wow.
Oh, and then some guy comes in, and you know, he's got all these people around. They said, hey, I know that Yasaphat built a gallows on his property to hang Mordecai the Jew.
Right.
And the king says, Mordecai the Jew, the man that saved my life? By that time the king had it, and he says, hey, take this guy out and hang him on the gallows that he made for Mordecai. But wait a minute, I want that ring back. Right. Remember the ring I told you about?
Yeah.
So we took the ring back, and they took Yasaphat out, and they hanged him, you know. They hanged him on the gallows.
The gallows that he built for your Uncle Mort.
Okay, so by that time, Uncle Mort, you know, he's head of security. He heard the whole kerfuffle there, and so he comes in, and just in time to hear the king tell me that he's going to give me all of Yasaphat's property and his house and everything. And when Uncle Mort came in, the king says, and Mordecai, I'm giving you my special ring, and you are going to be prime minister in Haman Yasaphat's place.
Isn't that marvelous?
Yeah, and I said, Uncle Mort, you could manage all this property, because you know, like, I'm not into property management.
No, I couldn't imagine you would.
No.
Boy. That is really amazing. So you all lived happily ever after?
Well, it wasn't quite that simple, because there was the matter of the death warrant that was issued. You know, the Persians, they can't just, they sent out the email and they had to redo the website. You can't just, like, do that.
No, I guess not.
No. But the king ordered a new decree to be posted on the website to take the place of the other decree that said they shouldn't do that to the Jews, and if they tried to do that to the Jews, that the Jews should defend themselves. And so that was good. It turned out good.
Well, so then you lived happily ever after.
Well, yeah, and everybody was so happy that a lot of people wanted to become Jewish.
Yeah.
And then what else happened? Let's see. Everybody wanted to become Jewish, and they wrote a book about me.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you'd written a book. You didn't write a book.
No, I didn't have to write a book, because there is a book.
Yeah?
And it's named after my Persian name, Esther. It's in a bigger book.
Yeah?
A really important book. That's a bestseller, you know.
Is it?
Yeah,
what is
it's
that
called
book?
The Bible.
The Bible.
Yes, you could read about it. Now, it's really funny. I told you it's called the Book of Esther. Now, Uncle Mort, he came up and he said, you know, Hadassah, I think you should call it the Book of Mort. But I said, I'm calling it Esther. That's what we did.
Esther.
And then the king said we should celebrate this day. It's called Purim, you know.
Purim?
Yes, to celebrate the downfall of the evil Haman Yasaphat.
And in the Bible, doesn't it say that everybody who believes in God should celebrate Purim from this day on forevermore?
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So people who believe in God celebrate Purim.
Yes.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, Your Majesty, may I say what a pleasure it has been to have you for Coffee with Clarence.
You may say that, Clarence.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is Clarence Clueless saying, have a good day. Thank you for watching, and see you tomorrow morning for Coffee with Clarence.
Bye.
Bye.